name is Pink Rose Kitty, and welcome back to Genshin Impact. Today I'm going to be doing an account showcase, as I feel I have a fairly unique account, having built almost every Cryo character of the game, barring Charlotte and Aloy, but we don't mention Aloy. I'm going to start off with my Kaya, as he was my main from day one, and although I now call myself a Cryo main rather than a Kaya main, if I were to choose any character that I use the most, I would say that my Kaya is the one. Now, I'm not going to be going over all the characters I have, because that would take quite a long time, as you can see from the character roster, and I have built to about here, roughly. I mean, these characters aren't particularly usable, but I'd say Sethos is the lowest I'd ever use, and then these characters are completely unbuilt. But yeah, if I went through all of these guys, it would take me quite a long time. So I'm going to start with Kaya, and I'm going to end on Chongyun. Starting with Kaya, currently he is on Absolution, but normally he's on Mistsplitter Reforged. However, I switched that between him and Ayaka because it is the best weapon most of the time, in most cases, for both of them. And I like both of them very much. I would probably pull for another Mistsplitter, but to be honest, I don't have the Prima Gems for that. The reason I use him with Absolution is mainly just the high base attack and the crit damage. Also, he gets crit damage increased by 20%, which is very nice as well. Sadly, the passive does not activate because there is no way to self-apply a Bond of Life, but it's still fairly good on him, and it fits the aesthetic, so what else can I say? His artifacts are obviously 4-piece Blizzard. He is on a Cryo damage bonus Goblet, which this could be much better, but it's probably one of the best ones I actually have on set. His flower is, I'd say that's pretty good. Obviously it could be better, but you know, it's around 26 crit value, which, I mean, isn't the best, and I think I have some that are a bit better. Or do I not? I don't have many great Blizzard Strayer flowers, so this is what I'm working with, but, you know. Then for his feather, it's a bit better, around 35 crit value, I believe, with some energy as well. Again, not the best, but I have rubbish artifact luck. Then this is the piece that I am very proud of, that is almost 50 crit value, which is insane. Very high crit value piece. This is probably one of the best artifacts I have in the entire game, which I'm very proud of. Yeah, this is why it's his off piece. And then his crown or circlet, I have a fairly good piece. The crit rate could be higher on this if it hadn't rolled into HP or energy, but you know, I'm not complaining. His overall stats are like so. Again, his crit rate is low because he's a Cryo character on Blizzard, and usually he has Cryo Resonance, so when enemies are frozen he does overcap, especially when using his normal attacks. If I bring you to his constellations, he is C6, which his C1 means that when I'm using his normal and charged attacks, when he's against opponents affected by Cryo, his crit rate is increased by 15%. Now this doesn't account for his burst and his skill, but it is still very useful. If you don't know, most people do, but starter 4-star constellations are some of the hardest to get. I only recently got him C6 after buying him in the shop practically every time and getting lucky with getting a couple of his constellations. His talents, he is triple crowned. Yeah, he was my main for a while. I think that's fairly expected. But yeah, that is my boy. Obviously I do have his second skin, because it came out for free in the event, but I choose to keep him in his usual skin most of the time. I actually kind of prefer it. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but this is just the skin I was used to and played with a lot, so it's kind of nostalgic for me. Moving on, we have Risley. Now, Risley is using Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds, which is a 5-star weapon. I do have most of my characters on 5-star weapons because I get very lucky on Weapon Banner. I don't have his signature because I didn't have the Primo Gems at the time, and he hasn't got a rerun since, so we'll see if he does. His artifact is 4-piece Marechaussee Hunter, which actually I think I've got him on a 5-piece right now. I could probably change that to an off-piece, but currently I'll leave him with this. His feather is pretty solid. Pretty solid, almost 40 CV. Yeah. His flower is not too good. The extra attack's quite nice, but it could use more crit. His sands, again, not too great. I don't have the best artifact luck in the world. Yeah, again, his goblet, not too great. And his circlet is pretty good for other stats, not great for the amount of crit it has. Then on to constellations. He is C1, I'm not going to read all of this out. His talents, again, triple crowned, and overall, this is what his stats look like. Again, the crit is fairly low, but he's normally working with Cryo Resonance and the Marechaussee Hunter set, which gives him extra crit. Then I have Shen, one of my favourite characters in the game, as you can tell by the skin. She is on Engulfing Lightning, which, funnily enough, I don't have Raiden, I just have Raiden's weapon, and I bunged it on Shen because it's pretty good for her. I would like Calamity Queller, but again, reruns. Hoyo, when I catch you, Hoyo, please give the Cryo characters a rerun and let them out of the basement. This is great for her because it has a fairly high base attack, gives energy recharge, gives extra attack based on energy recharge. Yeah, so it is one of her best, but I want the best for her. Artifact-wise, she's just on a 2-piece, giving her the most attack possible. Basically this build is just stacking attack and energy recharge on her. The crit doesn't matter too much, so it's mostly just attack stacking, as you can see here, and more attack stacking. So yeah, constellation wise, she is C2. I think I mentioned before that I got ridiculously lucky and got 2 constellations of her on her first and only rerun. Eventually I would love to get her C6, just because I think that would be really fun to play with Risley and Ganyu, but that is something for the future. Her talents are 6, 10, 10. I've double crowned her, mostly just because I use her burst a lot, and her skill is obviously very useful in an all-cryo team. Her normal attacks are fairly high, but just because I like getting my characters' normal attacks fairly high, even if they're not actually all that useful. I just like having all the talents fairly high so I can use a flexible array of builds. If I wanted to use like DPS Shenhe for some reason, then in theory I could. But obviously I'm not gonna crown her normal attacks because they aren't very useful. Overall, these are her stats. Mostly the energy recharge and the attack is all you really care about here. Yeah, as you can see, no damage bonus or anything. Next we have Eula. Eula does have her signature weapon. I got very lucky again with the weapons, which, yeah, is her best in slot. For her artifacts, I've got 4-piece Pale Flame. I've got fairly good amount of crit on here. Again, not the best. Again, that amount of defense hurts me. Again, here with the sands, not great, not terrible. The goblet's alright. Circlet's fairly good, but again, could use more crit. She is C1, which I'll just let you read that if you want. Her talents, she is triple crowned again. I seem to have an obsession with Cryo characters, if you couldn't tell by my lineup. And then this is her attributes overall. Her crit, I do very much need to get higher up, although I normally run her with Rosaria, who does boost crit rate, and it gives Cryo resonance, so that crit is normally slightly higher. Again, her energy as well could be higher, but running her with another Cryo character helps. Next we have Ganyu. She is on Aqua Simulacra, mostly for the huge bonus crit. Honestly, she is one of my favourite characters, and I have used her a lot. She is on 4-piece Blizzard. I have her on a freeze build rather than melt build, just because I prefer freeze personally. Her artifacts are alright, not particularly great, not particularly bad. This piece is pretty good, like that's 40 CV, pretty much. But, yeah, most of her artifacts aren't particularly stunning. They could be better. Her circlet is pretty good. I am very happy with this amount of crit. Yeah. Constellation, she is C1. Again, I get lucky with the cons. This just decreases cryo res basically, and gives her some energy. Talents, she is again triple crowned. She was only double crowned with her normal attack and burst until recently, but I decided why not triple crown her. Overall, her stats, again, pretty low crit rate, but you've got to remember Cryo character. Energy recharge, she could have more, especially since I use her burst a lot, but I don't tend to run into problems, especially since I normally run her with 2 other Cryo characters in a freeze team. So she generally does okay there. Again, just cryo damage bonus. Next we have Chi-Chi. You mainly want to focus on a bit of attack and some energy recharge for her. She is on the Fav Sword. She is on the Ocean Chewed Clam set. She has, again, just some attack, some energy, some attack, a bit of crit just for the Favonius Sword. Here she's got some more energy, bit of attack, bit of crit, and then here's just healing bonus, bit of attack. This piece is pretty rubbish, but yeah, it does the job. She is C1, which I got from the anniversary rewards. I decided to claim her C1 as I really want to eventually get her to C6. I know, normally people don't want to C6 Chi-Chi. I am the opposite. I am happy when I pull a Chi-Chi. Talents wise, you've got her double crowned with her normal attacks fairly high, just because I played physical Chi-Chi for a while because I found it quite funny. Overall, attributes, she's got quite a lot of energy, quite a lot of attack, and then she's got some healing bonus as well. Next is my Ayaka. Now, Ayaka is one of the characters that I have really tried to build, as she is one of the characters I use the most. I have her on Missplitter, as I showed earlier, but again, as I mentioned, this often switches with Kaya, so when I'm not using Ayaka, Missplitter will be back on him. Artifacts-wise, she is, of course, on 4-piece Blizzard. You can probably see a trend. She is on a pretty good flower, to be honest. Over 30 crit value, which is pretty good, with some energy as well. She has a pretty good feather as well. As you can see, most of my good artifacts are currently on Ayaka. Here we have another fairly good artifact, over 30 crit value. Here, this is probably my best Cryo Goblet. As you can see, it has pretty solid stats, heading towards 40 crit value. And then again, a pretty solid circlet with some good energy, some attack, crit damage, and crit rate. Constellation-wise, she is C0. And talents, she is, you guessed it, triple crowned. Overall, her stats are pretty solid, I would say. She has quite a lot of crit rate. She doesn't generally need that much if the enemies do freeze, because again, Cryo Resonance plus the 40 overcaps, and she has quite a lot of crit damage as well. I would ideally move about like 10% of that into crit damage, but I'm not going to be that picky. I'd rather be overcapped than undercapped. Energy recharge she could do with a bit more, and then again she has cryo damage bonus. Next we're on to Fremine. Fremine I don't use too much, but he is on the Ultimate Overlord's Mega Magic Sword, which I do have fully boosted because I did all the Melazine quests, so it's boosted by an extra 24% attack. Artifacts wise, he's currently not on a physical build, although I do have one for him if I need to. He's on a Cryo build just because I find it more fun to play. So he's on, again, Blizzard Straya. I have farmed this domain too many times. I'm just gonna flick through his artifacts quickly. I'd say that, again, not awful, but not great. Again, I don't have best artifact luck. He is C3, with his talents not being triple crowned. His are 888, quite nice and even, honestly. If I play him more, I might invest some more in these, but again, I don't play him all that much just because I prefer other playstyles, but each to their own. His crit rate, crit damage could be better, same with his energy, but yeah, again, like I mentioned, he's not a character I've invested in all that much. I mean, I say that, he's level 90, but he's not a character I play too much, so I haven't bothered to try and get his artifacts perfect. Next we have Mika, which I know a lot of people hate. I personally actually really like this character and play him a lot on my Eula teams. Weapons wise, I have him on the Dialogues of the Desert Sages, because it's really nice, gives him HP, gives him energy, which is very handy, and I just think it matches his outfit perfectly. I mean, look at that. Artifacts wise, I have him on Noblesse. You can just have a look at these artifacts. They're not all that... Oh, he is currently not built. Someone has stolen his feather. Who stole it? Did I change? I think I must have been changing around. Oh well. He currently doesn't have a feather built. I'll have to fix that at some point. He does have a Sans and Goblet and Circlet. Yeah. So I think it's just his feather that I must have stolen for somebody else. Constellation wise, he is again C3. And his talents are 688. I will likely get his skill and burst higher up eventually, but for now they're staying there. Overall, he has quite a lot of HP, some energy recharge, and other than that, most of the stats don't really matter. Next we have Layla, who is currently on the Dockhand's Assistant. I do sometimes actually have her on Jade Cutter because I like to use more of a DPS build for her, as well as a shielder, but for now she is on a full support. Artifact wise, she is on Tenacity of the Millilith. She mostly has HP and energy recharge with a little bit of crit. Again, energy recharge, HP, crit. Again, energy recharge, HP, crit. Her pieces are fairly good, but yeah, not the best. They could use some work. Constellation, she is C2. And her talents are 6, 10, 10. Overall, she has quite a lot of HP. When I switch around her build, she has more like 50 to 110, I think. But currently, she is just focused on energy recharge and HP. Next, we have Rosaria, who is on the Primordial Jadewing Spear, mostly because of the crit and the high base attack. she is on Noblesse Obliged, where she basically mostly focuses on crit. Like as you see, I got quite high crit rate pieces on her. She's mostly on crit rate so that her passive allows her to give more crit rate to other players based on her own, where she can give 15% of her crit rate to another character, which caps out, I believe, at 100%. It is very nice having her C6 because it does 20% physical res shred, which is really handy on a Eula team. And then talents wise, she is 699. I have thought about crowning her before. I may crown her burst in the future, but we'll have to see. Overall, she's got very high crit rate compared to her crit damage, but that's so that she gives more extra crit rate because of her passive. Her energy could be higher, but again, I normally run her with other Cryo characters, so I don't generally have an issue there. Next is Diona. Diona is on Elegy for the End. Again, another 5-star weapon. I am ridiculously lucky with these. I mostly use that for the energy. Artifact-wise, she's on Tenacity of the Millilith, mostly for HP and energy recharge, as you can see. Again, HP, energy recharge. The supports are always a lot easier to build. Constellation-wise, she is C6. Talents-wise, she is 6, 9, 10, again with Constellation buffing. And overall, she has quite a lot of HP with a lot of energy recharge, and that's all that really matters for her. Finally, we have Chongyun, which I love this character. He works very well, especially on my Kaya team. And I mostly use him as a support, but I know he can be quite a good main DPS. His weapon is the Skyward Pride, mostly for the energy recharge, and it's high base attack. 5-star weapons are just pretty good. He is on Emblem to help with some more energy recharge to make sure he gets his burst back. His artifacts are fairly good. Again, not anything spectacular, but not particularly bad, I don't think, although saying that, the circlet with 21 defense percentage kind of hurt. This looked so good when I first got it, and then it just didn't. In fact, I'm pretty sure its first roll was crit rate as well, so I was so happy, and then the rest went into defense and elemental mastery. Constellation-wise, he is C6. I am quite lucky with the Cryo characters. Obviously 4 stars are much easier to get, but having a lot of C6 4-stars definitely helps with working with Cryo teams. Talents-wise, he is 6, 9, 10, again boosted with constellations. I have thought about possibly crowning his skill, but I might just stick with his crown burst. Overall, he has a good amount of crit, I'd say. I could use a bit more crit rate, especially since he isn't on Blizzard, but we'll work on that when it gets to it. Energy recharge I'm pretty happy with, and he does have cryo damage bonus. That is it for my Cryo character account review. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any advice, you're welcome to share it in the comments. Please don't be rude though. If it's not how you would build a character, or you're annoyed because these characters aren't particularly meta, these are just the characters that I like building, and please don't be offended if any of the characters that I say I don't play as much are some of your favourites. I know everyone has different ones, and obviously mine are going to be much different than someone else's, but these are just what I like to play. And with that, I will see you guys next time. Goodbye!